When did it become impossible for courts to stop this project?
I think it would have been improper to enjoin it even on day one.
So this is really something that can't be stopped in courts. It can only be stopped by Congress.
I think that's right.
All right, my panel is back. Elliot Williams.
Yes, that's ludicrous. I don't know what the question was, but I will tell you the answer is that is ludicrous. That is incorrect. It just, one can support the idea of the White House having a ballroom. It can be something that is a welcome addition to the East. Fine. However, the courts have the power to enjoin actions by Congress and the president. That is how our courts have worked from the beginning. That's not about the activism of courts or anything else. The idea that somehow the president has unilateral authority that cannot be checked by the federal courts is just incorrect. And it's not, I'm not stating an opinion here. This is not a feeling or a vibe. That is simply how the separation of powers work in the country. That is incorrect.
So just to take this one step farther, the judge pressed the Trump administration lawyer about what would happen if they decided tomorrow that they wanted to bulldoze the Statue of Liberty. Here's what she asked and what the lawyer said back.
If the government decided to move very quickly and bulldoze the Statue of Liberty, the people whose ancestors, that was the first thing they saw coming to this country. But the government moved too fast. Nothing can be done.
I think that's right. Yes.
That is this is a fun exercise to have. That's the definition of what you would call a constitutional crisis, where one branch of government decides to do something that they wish to do. Perhaps they think it is in the public interest to bulldoze the Statue of Liberty. Okay, fine. That's what they want to do. Parties would sue and a court would tell them not to do it. And if they don't follow that court order, we are in a crisis as a nation. You have an obligation as the executive branch of the government to follow what courts say. I know this is, I'm sorry to go back to 10th grade history or 11th grade history here, but these are just such basic facts, and we're in the upside down right now, having to explain something so painfully simple that has become normalized in this country and is not healthy.
The battle over Trump's White House ballroom made its way into the courtroom today. An appeals court heard arguments from the administration over whether to reverse a lower court ruling that said the ballroom could not move forward without Congress's blessing. That ruling, as you know, had been on pause until now. Lawyers for the administration argue that the courts have no authority to stop the ballroom at all. They said that even if it was built illegally, courts can't do anything, because construction is well underway and the ballroom is necessary for national security, they said. Now, one of the judges pressed the administration to define the limits of the president's power.
When did it become impossible for courts to stop this project?
I think it would have been improper to enjoin it even on day one.
If the government decided to move very quickly and bulldoze the Statue of Liberty, the people whose ancestors, that was the first thing they saw coming to this country. But the government moved too fast. Nothing can be done.
I think that's right. Yes.
Joining me now, senior legal affairs reporter for Politico, Josh Gerstein. I hear that argument essentially, it's easier to ask for forgiveness than permission. And when you're already bulldozed, there is no action that can be taken. Is that the crux of what's happening here?
Well, that's been one of the issues here with the ballroom since the beginning, right? That we had this sort of surprise demolition of the East Wing, and it was really over before anybody could get to court. Another thing that came up in the courtroom today was sort of the changing explanations from the White House and even from the Justice Department about what happened here. Mm-hmm. At the very beginning, when they were trying to make sure the judge didn't stop what was already going on underground, they said, look, the ballroom has nothing to do with the bunkers and the security systems that we're going to put in underground. And now they're saying that the ballroom and the sort of the cap that's going to be put over that bunker is an essential part of it. There's no point in really building any of those other things without this ballroom structure. And you may have seen even Trump is putting out graphics that show some kind of drone port where swarms of drones will go off the roof of the building or something like that. So there's been a changing explanation of how critical now this ballroom is basically an essential national security measure.
Trump and other presidents have used this idea of it's for national security as a kind of blank check that is supposed to silence anyone who criticizes. One of the judges today appeared to agree with at least the balance between national security interests and, say, the underlying aspect of the lawsuit, including whether he could have done it at all.
Right. I mean, what was really interesting during the arguments was the Justice Department's position was, even if this was totally illegal, if there was a black and white statute that simply said, you know, you can't knock down this part of the White House and you can't build a ballroom, even under those circumstances, there would be no way to get an injunction here. The most you could get was a court to say this was illegal and the ball to be sort of punted into Congress's court to figure out what to do because of the national security implications.
We're here because there is an active lawsuit that's happened. It came after there had been the bulldozing and the demolition and now the rebuilding above ground aspects of it. Trump and the administration are saying there is no standing for the person who is actually bringing this case, that she feels offended professionally, personally by the aesthetic impact in Washington, D.C. Is that going to be a winning standing argument?
I mean, I think that's an argument that appeals to a lot of judicial and legal conservatives, that the standing rules around these issues are really too loose, and it seems like almost anyone can go to court. The problem is, especially here in D.C. and the D.C. Circuit, those rules are precedent and those rules are fairly loose, that if the Park Service, you know, wants to put, for example, an oil rig or a mine in the middle of a national park, you can get someone who visits the park regularly and make them sort of the lead plaintiff in a lawsuit to challenge that. The courts have upheld that kind of standing. So,
And the White House is essentially falling into that criteria as a part of the Park Service?
yeah, it's within a national park called the President's Park, and there are obviously people who do go down there on a regular basis and are invested, like the woman who's being used to establish standing in this case, who works on various historical groups and says she visits the area on a regular basis and is involved in historical preservation efforts. It's usually the kind of thing that's more than enough to get you over the relatively low bar to get into court in this kind of a battle.
This is a battle, nonetheless. Of course, the timing of it, essentially the idea that, well, it's too late now, they've already bulldozed it, may not be that convincing to every judge on that panel. Josh Gerstein, thank you so much.
Sure.
Again, a vast majority of Americans are furious about the economy and they feel pessimistic about things getting better. But regardless, the president's big focus seems to be on his pet projects around the Capitol. A reflecting pool renovation, a marble walkway at the White House, a UFC cage on the White House South Lawn, the billion-dollar ballroom, and of course, a 250-foot arch, which, by the way, a Trump-backed panel voted to advance plans for that arch this week, despite public opposition to the project and real concerns that its height could be hazardous to air travel. Arthur, you were chuckling as he was talking about the Trump promenade.
I mean,
he really doesn't want it.
I mean, he really does.
And it's also it's beautiful. It's beautiful. It's going to be beautiful.
But they're asking.
But look,
People are asking.
Here's why we should not be surprised. And you know, you left out Penn Station that he wants to do
That's
here
true.
in New York,
Yes,
which
he does
is
want to
a
do
huge,
Penn Station.
necessary project, I may add. He's a builder. I mean, that is what he is. I mean, yes, he was the actor on The Apprentice, but his father and that's what I mean, in Brooklyn, there's a whole section of the Trump Village. That was his dad. That's where the wealth came from. So I'm not shocked that his instinct is to build and build and build. And look, I'm a cheerleader, even in my own little law office, even when things are down, like, let's do something special. Let's bring people together. Making the Capitol, there's plenty of things you could criticize Donald Trump about, but making the Capitol more beautiful. And look, I don't know about the arch, but I don't know, this pedestrian bridge, it sounds nice to walk over from. It doesn't sound like, there's a lot worse ideas that Donald Trump has had to invest money
you don't
in
think
our
this sounds,
beautiful.
friend. Yes, you've been working out,
That's
friend.
correct.
Okay, so, but you got to be honest. Like, this sounds ridiculous. And
What
first of all,
sounds ridiculous?
Abby,
Making Washington more beautiful?
oh, stop it! And why is he?
okay.
It's almost like first of all, it's like the Kennedy Center. When he put his name up there, it literally was like putting your name on someone else's tombstone.
Yeah.
It's disgusting.
Well-
And it literally is the same.
You didn't hear me say anything about that,
No,
friend.
but friend, he is trying to do that everywhere he goes. When there are bigger
That's
issues
not
at hand.
shocking. As a New Yorker,
I know, but it
that
doesn't.
is not
but that
shocking.
doesn't.
His
But
name is everywhere
but this
around
question.
here.
But this question isn't asked in isolation either. He should not be doing that, and you know that.
Well,
There are
putting
other
his
issues.
name on it or
he shouldn't be building
pretty-
anything right now. We should be taking care of the economy.
But you
we
can
should
say
be
that at
trying to
any
make sure
time.
Medicare.
You can say that any time during
Arthur,
our
Arthur,
history.
that's just not a fair. You're not a fair.
I've lived in DC now for, I guess, 13 years. One of my favorite things to do is walk on the mall and to hit the different monuments.
Which I
and
love.
to go. But what makes those stops along the way is the historical nature of them. I remember when the MLK statue was erected. He had been dead for almost 35 years, 40 years at that point, and it became a moment of remembrance, not a moment of the present. So maybe in 40 years, Trump will get an arch.
Perhaps.
If history
I
remembers.
I was not talking
But
about the arch. I was talking about some of the things that
I think we should, to Arthur's point, I think we need
spoke
to
about it. Like redoing primarily the reflecting pool is a mess.
It was.
And just
It needs to be done right now.
Yes,
While we're at the
but
war of choice, it
listen,
needs to be done right now in
when
this
the
moment.
Vietnam Memorial went up, I don't think the economy was booming. I mean, you can look at you could always find an
You
excuse not to do
you
it.
cannot compare the Vietnam Memorial to him wanting to put a new reflecting pool down. There's not even the same. You can't do
Why?
that because
Why? If there-
this is a vanity
Abby
project.
loves the reflecting pool. If there's no water in the pool,
Abby's like, how'd I get in
If
it?
there's no water in the pool,
Abby's like,
it's not a pool.
Abby's minding her business.
Help me out, Ashley.
Well,
Okay,
let me just
friend.
say one.
Help me out, Ashley. Help me out.
I'll just say, I do think you can, in this instance, perhaps disaggregate them. If he just was renovating the reflecting pool so that it was beautiful for the 250th anniversary of our country, perhaps. But that is not
But
what is
friend.
happening, friend.
Not happening.
Wait.
Okay, Rob was going to say something.
Sorry, Rob.
Oh no, I think that
Give us
local
some solution.
Come on, Rob.
I'll try.
Yes.
I mean, my office is right near Union Station. They just opened the Columbus Circle statue. After years of being in disrepair, the fountains are working again. Not just there, but in other places. I think local residents in Washington D.C. genuinely like to see the city improve. And it is the reason I say that it should be done now is simply because you're going to have a massive influx of people over the coming months to celebrate the 250th anniversary. So what better time to do it?
Perfect segue.